Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, everybody. My name is Vishal Mathur. I'm the Global Head of Engagement at the Telecom Infra Project. Lovely to see you all. Thank you all. Today, we have an illustrious panel with me. We are going to be talking about the subject of neutral host and infrastructure sharing. This is one of the main project groups within TIP, and actually what we have here is the leadership team for that community. We're going to be talking about what it is that this group is trying to solve and how we're trying to solve it, some of the case studies and regional variances that exist in the market, and actually looking at what the next steps could be going beyond that. Before I get into the actual panel session, let me introduce everyone. So I'm going to go down the stream and ask everyone to introduce themselves, which company they're from, and their perspectives. So if I start with Daniel Herb.
Thanks, Vish. Yes, my name's Daniel Herb. I'm the Chief Product Officer at IONX Networks. We're a company that's a startup, but been around for a few years. This is actually a rebrand year. You might have formerly known us as Dense Air, and we're a neutral host provider, primarily active in the US and UK, and have really enjoyed being part of the TIP community.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Kunal.
Sure. Good evening, Vishal. Thank you so much. I'm Kunal Bajaj. I'm the CEO and co-founder of CloudExtel. We're an India-based neutral host. We work across both the wireless and the wireline domain. So we are providing sites, RAN sharing, as well as neutral FTTH and fiber infrastructure for backhaul. Our coverage area is across all of India. Also, still consider ourselves a startup, though we've been around for about 11 years now.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Kunal.
Yes, hi, Shirish Nagaraj. I'm the SVP for Global R&D at Airspan Networks. Airspan is also a small company, but been around for a while. We build small cells, distributed antenna systems, air-to-ground connectivity solutions for private networks and radios, Open RAN radios for MNOs across the world.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Shirish. And least but last, Morgan.
Hi, thanks, Vish. Morgan Curby here from Proptivity. We are a kind of Nordic neutral host focusing on Europe at the moment. We are also very much focused on commercial real estate. Our owner and founding kind of company is a large real estate service company from Sweden. So that's our focus.
Thank you very much, Morgan, as well. Everybody, just a reminder, this group is our leadership team for the neutral host infrastructure sharing PG within TIP. It's a good, illustrious global audience as well. So we come together on a weekly basis and try and come together with the broader community on a regular basis as well. What I'd like to start with is actually what we think the industry challenges that we're trying to solve. And I'm going to pose the question to Morgan, if I may. So Morgan, what is the industry challenge that's trying to be solved within this community? And why is it so important?
Yeah, I think let's go back to, I am an old telecom person, worked in Ericsson and Telecom for more years than I can remember. We have focused on outdoor, and that's more or less where Telecom has focused to create coverage. Unfortunately, we, the people and the users, are indoor, and this has become more and more kind of obvious, since the focus of the MNOs, they cannot really deploy indoor, especially nowadays when they all have a bit of a capex squeeze in the industry. Something which has kind of exacerbated this challenge is the green paradox, meaning what do property owners do with their buildings when they do new buildings? They do energy efficient buildings, metal plated windows to make sure that energy stays inside the buildings. Also means that radio signals very much stays on the outside of buildings. At the same time, tenants, users, consumers, shoppers, security personnel, everyone wants coverage everywhere you are all the time. And AI support services will not make this less of a request. So what we are trying to solve as an industry now, especially the neutral host part, is that, okay, how can we allow properties of different kinds to deploy and help overcome this challenge of also bringing coverage on the inside? And that's what we are working on.
Fantastic, Morgan. So chronic coverage issues in building, actual demand for in-building coverage. The green paradox is preventing actual signal strength within in-building, and actually there's an investment challenge from the traditional telco market. Anyone would like to add anything on top of that?
I think the only thing that I'd maybe add is also that in the in-building space, there's a dire need for connectivity from a public safety standpoint.
Yes.
That's another big issue that even regulators have to look at it, and that's kind of critical to drive in-building infrastructure.
Is that a global trend, you think, Shirish? Are building regs being changed to,
I think we've seen this in certain regions happen. Regulators are stepping in, but otherwise, a lot more needs to be done on that at a global scale.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, let's carry on from there. So I guess my next question is, it'll go to each of you, but you're all coming together at Fuse in November the 3rd to the 5th in Dublin, and there will be quite, conversations around exactly this, the neutral host models and how they're being adopted in different regions. Could each of you provide some insights from your experiences and what you think are the common success criteria for driving further adoption of this type of operating model? So let's start with Daniel and from IONX Networks.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that the industry is looking for is standardization. So shared infrastructure requires participants of many different players, mobile operators, infrastructure owners like Morgan was talking about. And as Shirish just mentioned, there is increasing attention being paid from regulatory, from, we'll just say, outside other bodies. And so finding a way to be able to templatize, standardize, and really roll out best practice is a key unlock to kind of making more transparent and repeatable a lot of these activities. And you're going to hear a lot about that at Fuse. What does good look like? What are specific examples out in the real world? That's one of the fun things about working with this group, is being able to hear directly what has worked and what's worked really well, and have real-time case studies that are deployed out in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say perhaps from your perspectives, you've certainly got some success cases in the UK and US that you're bringing to the table. Is that right, Daniel?
Yeah, we're going to have some of the mobile operator community will be at Fuse. That's going to be fun to talk from their perspective about what they're seeing, both for outdoor and for indoor. We'll have examples ourselves. Been a strong year for us with some really good case studies we can bring to the table on different commercial real estate and in building, as well as some fun things that we've done out of the UK for the first year that they've rolled out the outdoor specification for the joint operator technical specification, the JOTS framework, which is I think, industry leader in terms of being able to formalize how neutral host can look across multiple parties.
Yeah, and will be wonderful that fuses whether we can debate around that particular framework, whether it can be replicated or adopted, or certain common threads can be taken in other regions as well. Thank you for that. Kunal, passing to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And because in this project group, we're representing a number of different regions. So, we will have different problems that our regions are being faced. I would say, while Europe and US are much more mature in this model, in India and other emerging markets, we find that the majority of such successful neutral host deployments are still focusing on those high value venues. So, an airport goes up for a tender, a new metro line is getting built. So the stations, bus stations, and other sort of these, either government backed or semi-government types of large installations where you're going to have large gatherings of people. So that is, where the majority of the investment is going today. And that's also where the majority of the success factors are. I would say, given how much infrastructure capex is going into India, there is a lot of these types of projects that keep coming up. And so there's enough volume there. But I think for this to really become truly mainstreamed and for the real volume to kick in, it's got to extend beyond that. We've got to start extending naturally to all the multi-tenanted enterprise locations, to residential beyond just the very high end. And I think that's kind of the challenge that's being faced today, is that, the focus is on these marquee deployments and these, marquee venues, but it's not really extending at too rapid of a pace beyond that. At CloudExtel, our major success story deployment is again at our marquee venue, the Mumbai Railways, but taking especially something like a fully shared RAN rather than just DAS or active DAS or something like that into venues beyond that is still a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's building the story. So, some level of standard best practices, as Daniel is saying, plus also some learnings from various case studies, maybe frameworks like JOTS. And Kunal, as you're saying, your perspective is going beyond the marquee locations to things that actually can be extendable into residential or multi-dwelling, whatever it might be, but true multi-RAN in that respect. Very good. Excellent. Let's carry on. Shirish from Airspan, your thoughts?
Yeah, so maybe just carrying on what Kunal said. In the US, we see a similar segmentation. If you look at what we refer to as public venue sort of locations, stadiums, airports, what have you, there's a lot of investment that goes on. And typically, the challenge there is from a solution perspective. A lot of DASs are deployed there, but then there's a challenge that these are now very expensive, bulky, energy inefficient, and so on. So there's a lot of need to move those into a more digital, like maybe an ORAN style architecture that is far more energy efficient. That's the challenge on the public venue side. But really, the main challenge in my mind rests on the enterprise side, where there's not much in a focus. There's not investment going on there, and there you have to provide an end-to-end solution, whether it's a Moran style architecture or a Mokan architecture. There needs to be standardization and deployment best practices that are adopted uniformly so that people can actually turn up these solutions within a matter of weeks as opposed to waiting for months for these networks to go live.
Very good. Excellent. So certainly work to be done in terms of showcasing standard solution architectures that actually can be used either for public venue or enterprise, but built around operating frameworks that are standard enough as well, as Daniel was picking up as well. That's what I'm hearing. And that moves us away from the more cumbersome, energy inefficient, expensive models that exist at the moment. Okay, very good. And Morgan, Proptivity's view.
Yeah, I guess we are very focused on commercial real estate in the office and retail, and here we see Daniel mentioned UK yachts as one of the best examples, and we agree. UK yachts model, the NHIB version, is basically the the gold standard of neutral host, how it works. But UK is also a very good place to see the two sides of this. The one side is who drives the investment of indoor, who has the most value of indoor, and in our segment, the commercial real estate, it's kind of obvious that the value here is that the demand from tenants translated into rent or leasing agreements, and meaning the property owners needs to feel that they should invest in solutions. And in UK, we see that that's happening now on scale for all new buildings. All kind of major attractive central business area buildings are investing in indoor coverage. And of course, we are pushing this energy efficient, like Shirish was talking about. We need to take it into digital kind of environment, energy efficiency, future-proof installations. And that's also what property owners want to have. They want to feel that they are investing in 10, 20 years kind of horizon there. So that's one side of this need and who's willing to pay. On the other side, we have the MNOs. In our case, we deploy public operators as the main focus here. And in UK, those operators have already also decided that this is an excellent thing to do. It gives them more value if the more buildings they integrate their services to, it gives them more value. That is actually not the case in all countries. So I think that we can all learn, all countries can learn something from UK in this respect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think certainly within the community, it's worth us actually putting a bit of a case study around JOTS. Seems like we, at least 3 of you or 2 of you have talked about it. It would be great to actually understand how did the operators come together under that framework. And I do love what you're saying, Morgan, that there is actual value there from a property owner perspective. They would pay for good coverage and connectivity if it's done correctly. And probably in Shirish's mindset, solutionized or industrialized solutions that actually can be used fairly quickly. Very good. Excellent. Okay. I'd like to actually just move to the last question, if I may. So there's more that we can actually sort of showcase through this community, and we will do that. We'll be publishing some of these case studies as well as going and talking about more at this at Fuse. But, gentlemen, where do we go from here? There's obviously awareness of the ideology of neutral host. There's obviously a need for driving more agile approaches to driving up adoption. But in your minds, what challenges still need to be addressed? How can a community-based approach really make a difference? And if you had one ask I'm saying 3 questions. If you had one asked to the industry, what is it that you would want to see happening? So if you remember that, what challenges really need to be addressed? How can a community approach globally help to make a difference? And what's your specific ask if there is one? Go back down the line from Morgan, actually. Let's start with yourself, Morgan.
Yeah. So my main tiny ask would be how to get all MNOs to agree, approve, willing to go into digital integration into these type of infrastructures, because that's the only way we can come to scale here. That's the only way we can address all the buildings which may or may not have actual capex like the commercial real estate guys have. So if we want to make sure that we cover schools, hospitals, you name it, every type of indoor area, we need to become efficient, energy efficient, resource efficient, and the only way to do that is to make the MNOs integrate digitally to these type of infrastructures. That's my tiny ask.
Okay. Thanks, Morgan. Suresh?
Yeah, pretty related ask actually. I think it all revolves around sort of operational standardization. There's twofold problem. There's a business model problem, which means that it's not standardized, which every geography and every type of deployment is unique and different. That leads to some challenges in sort of understanding how this works. But the other thing is just operational piece of it, which means that how do these systems get deployed, who installs, and how does it work? There needs to be, maybe we take a leaf of the JOTS approach and standard around that. And if we can get MNO buy-in, like Morgan was saying, I think that would be really important. It's a tall order to get it across the world, but I think it's a worthwhile effort to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And building upon both of what you're saying, perhaps, the community next year should actually start to build a little bit more framework or showcases of MNOs actually pushing forward in this regard and actually putting them up on the podium, showcasing to the other MNOs the reason why they should be doing that. We do that at Fuse, but we should be doing it at a higher cadence. Kunal.
Yeah, thanks, Vish. So I fully support, highlighting these case studies because there are successes and not enough of the operators know about it. I think the other area is, again, reflecting on the points that were made about JOTS. There are many regulators now trying to push from a quality of service angle. TRAI in India, and there's various others who are starting to become aware of the fact that they can play a role in driving end consumer quality by looking at things like building coverage, building regulations, and things of that sort. And I think that's probably an area where we can bring the ecosystem together and play a very important role, because there are examples like JOTS, but there's also various other learnings that we have as operators that we can probably help bring to bear here to make sure that the outcome which is coming out on the other side really creates that scale, volume, and momentum which we're all trying to create over here, and has the buy-in of all the players here, the operators, the neutral hosts like ourselves, and the policymakers.
Fantastic, Frank. Thanks very much, Kunal. And Daniel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I really agree with what we've heard here. Biggest challenge I think facing us remains fragmentation. I think that fragmentation in the industry from some of the technology choices that Shirish mentioned, like Kunal said, fragmentation across approaches for really large public venues that are maybe more easily identified and funded versus how can you do this at the massive scale to meet the demand. That remains our biggest challenge. And I think partly because the lack of awareness. So transitioning to the second part, what do we hope to see? Our job here is to raise the awareness, to bring understanding and repeatable ways to go solve this. That's something that I remain really excited to be part of this group for. And if I had one ask, I think certainly it would be for us to be able to keep in mind as an overall community, we're really serving an end customer problem. In a lot of these case studies and a lot of these examples, the beneficiary, the ultimate customer here is not the payee. So in Morgan's example, the property owner may be providing the funding to receive the solution. As Shirish mentioned, you really need to have a productized or solutionized way of repeatably and predictably delivering this. But at the end of the day, the reason that regulation is coming is because there are safety reasons and there are productivity reasons. We rely upon our handsets everywhere, and most of our time is spent indoor. So if we want to have location, if we want our apps to work, if we want to carry on a call like this when we have to move from one room to another, nothing can do that like cellular can. And the way to achieve this for end customers is that we're going to have to realign ourselves as an industry a little bit, which is what this process is about. So I agree with Morgan. It's a little ask, rearrange an industry, but that's what makes it a fun challenge. So that's what we go into this event at Fuse to hear examples of what does that look like when it's done really well.
Absolutely. And you've summarized everything very well, Daniel, actually. And I know we're talking about mobile connectivity here indoor, but I presume there's even more of an explosion around data center and fiber investments as well. Do you think that there's an extensibility beyond mobile here? And anyone can answer that if they wish. It's just
Yeah, I'd love to
a
have
bonus
Kunal
question.
jump in on this because, I absolutely think that that's something that we're all witnessing is that in order to serve AI, this is not just going to be one framework or infrastructure approach. It's going to have to go across fixed and mobile would be my view. But Kunal, I know this is something that as a company, you guys live and breathe every day.
Absolutely, and I think we're seeing more, emphasis being placed on the common infrastructure or the role that we play as a neutral host on the fiber connectivity side, particularly like you said, Vish, to data centers. And it's not only because there's more emphasis there, but you also have a higher variety of customers. It's not just telcos, but you have your or mainline telcos. You've got your ISPs, you've got your enterprise-oriented ISPs, plus the hyperscalers themselves, as well as the data centers. So clearly, the utilization for neutral host infrastructure there ends up being much more valuable because the customer set is that much larger. And certainly many of these guys can't A, afford to go and build this out on their own, or B, have the expertise to do it. And I think that's why we will continue to see increasing emphasis, particularly as you see that entire piece of it, not just, the AI, but the whole content delivery, ISP connectivity, higher speeds to homes needed on fixed line, et cetera, et cetera.
Fantastic. Very good. That just ends my Q&A here. And thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate this. If I may, probably a challenge for all of us, Tip, as well as yourself as a leadership team on this PG, is there's certainly a recognition that we're trying to bring operators on board here on the mobile connectivity side, and maybe even fiber infrastructure providers on the fixed side. I would suggest that as a group, we should try and bring more of the voice of the customer as much as we can. The enterprise owners, the property owners, the public infrastructure providers who are already trying to talk about the fact that they're changing regulations and they're trying to drive forward quality of service as well as connectivity within their buildings because there's a demand there. And we bring that demand side, we bring the operating models or the solutions that are available as a brokering type of service, and we bring the MNOs on the other side who provide the actual spectrum and the connectivity on the other side. Maybe that's something that we can challenge ourselves with next year, is really building up a bit more cadence. Not going to solve the world, and there's no one size fits all, but certainly there's probably an opportunity for us to really, push the boat a little bit more. But that's just my thoughts. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Let's finish this off. And I hope people who have managed to listen in have enjoyed what we've just given. As I said, if you're not coming to Fuse, make sure you register and come to Fuse and talk to these people and listen a little bit more about what's happening in this space. So fuse.org, you can register there. And if you are registered, then please do connect with Morgan, Shirish, Kunal, and Daniel and their teams, as well as others who are speaking about this topic. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to you, gentlemen,
you.
as well.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Vish.